Welcome to What a Creep, the show with Margo Donahue and Sonia Mansfield talking about creeps from the past to the present.
This is your quick guide to the biggest creeps, jerks, assholes, and losers, the best of the worst.
From two nice ladies who want the world to be a little less creepy. Welcome back to What a Creep. This is Margo Donahue, and my cohort in creepitude, as always, is the amazing Sonia Mansfield. Hey, Sonia.
Hello, my amazing friend.
Hello, my amazing friend. We are the podcast that talks about creeps from the past to the present. Today, we're talking about a bit of creepy New York 1980s stuff that went on, media stuff and all kinds of things. But in case you have some ideas for us of creeps to cover, or non-creeps, and just so you all know if you're new, we always end the show with someone or something that is not a creep. So you end up leaving feeling good about the world, or at least slightly more hopeful than when you entered it.
Yes.
We do have a basic Facebook page, but that's a place where people go to complain about our language. This is the warning. We use salty language in this program.
Yeah, fucking deal with it.
If we want to interact with us, and why wouldn't you? We're a goddamn delight. We suggest you go to join our Facebook group. You have to answer a few questions. Mostly just promise not to be an asshole. So you just type in What a Creep podcast group and ask to join. And people talk about all kinds of creeps in the news and things like that.
It's fun.
It is fun. We're on Twitter/X at CreepPod because somebody had that for over 10 years and never used it. But of course, it's okay for Alex Jones to come back on there and whatever he did.
Creeps.
Okay, whatever. We're on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. All of them is What a Creep. And we have an old-timey email, whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. If you would like some stickers, and I've sent a bunch out this week, Sonia. Lots of people want some stickers.
Yeah.
Ask for them. Just ask. Dare us to send them to you wherever you are on the planet of Earth. We will get them to you.
That's right. She will. She'll do it.
Oh, don't. I go crazy, y'all. I go to the post office. I'll wait in line to drop off mail.
She does it for you.
I do.
Do it all for you, cohorts.
Sonia, tell them about the website, please.
You can go to whatacreeppodcast.com, and it's everything you ever wanted to know about our show, but we're afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to ask, but everything's there. Links to all of our past episodes are there, and in each of those little posts are show notes because we source everything we do. We want to give people credit for the work that they've done reporting on these things. So if you're looking for a deeper dive, that's a great place to start. We also have a link to our merch shop where you can get t-shirts and tote bags and face masks and all kinds of cool things. We also have a link to our Substack where we do a monthly newsletter, which I didn't do for October, but
December,
December, thank you, December. But I did, what is time, man? What is it?
I have no idea.
But I did send out our Patreon holiday cards. So I did do something this month. Tell them about our Patreon page, Margo.
Patreon. If you want to send us a few bucks for the show, that would be amazing. We use the money to just do the general things we like to do for the show. It pays for all the news sources and the software for the cards that we sent out to everybody's Patreon member. You get the first 8 seasons of the show that's on the Patreon wall that's not available anywhere else. We also put out 2 bonus episodes a month. Two bonus episodes a month where we just kind of shoot the shit. And we have a lot of fun. And we appreciate all of you that are Patreon members. We'll give you special shout out in the next episode, bonus episode.
Oh, yeah.
We have a tradition now.
Yeah, that's fun. That's going to be fun.
If money is tight, we totally understand. If you could just leave us a 5-star review, hopefully on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, wherever, that'd be amazing. And we want to give a thank you to Brit is Back, or Brick is Bet. Brit is Beck? Beck. Left us a lovely review in iTunes and mentioned Max, Sonia's dog.
Yeah, damn it, Max.
We just we appreciate all of you for listening and your feedback and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Means a lot. Thank you.
It does, sweetenly. Sonia, are you familiar with Marla Hanson?
I am vaguely familiar. I don't know all the details, so hit me.
I'll hit you up with this. So this was Marla Hanson. On Thursday, June 5th, 1986, in New York City, 24-year-old Marla Hanson was slashed across her face with razors. at the behest of her landlord, Stephen Roth, who was fascinated with the rising model and upset she wanted to leave his apartment building. She was renting from him. The case made her famous across the country because of her moxie and vitality. It was also yet another reminder of how violent New York City was in the 1980s, and the media lapped that shit up anytime there was crime in New York.
Yes. This, by the way, this is happening right now in San Francisco.
Right.
When anything bad happens, and it's, let me rephrase that. When it happens to a certain kind of person, they freak out. The media starts a whole spin here of San Francisco's a shithole. Look what happened. And then, and sometimes that story goes in a way they didn't expect it to go. And that always fascinates me.
And that was New York. And New York, and crime was higher in New York City then. And they were filled with like newspapers. There was afternoon papers and morning papers. It's a media central place. I get it. The eventual trials against Roth and later the two men he hired for the mission, Stephen Bowman and Darren Norman, tried to paint Marla as a man-eater who thrived on attention. Their defense attorney, Alton Maddox, said at the beginning of the trial, "I will tell you about a woman named Marla Hanson who was after every man in the city, a woman who preyed on men and their relationships with women."
Gonna be such bullshit.
Just so that you all know, they were all found guilty.
Yeah.
But Marla still lives with the emotional scars of being a victim, not just of the slashing, but sometimes of this very brutal justice system, which made her feel as if she were the one that was on trial. Today, we are discussing her case and its repercussions on Marla and how she fights to protect victims to this day. Trigger warnings, sexual assault, and violence. Sources for this episode: Texas Monthly, Washington Post, Marla Hansen's Wikipedia, of course, New York Magazine, Little Things. She had a TV movie about her life. She sold her rights. It was made in 1991. It's called The Marla Hansen Story. Daily Mail, or go to the Daily Fail podcast, because every time we mention the Daily Mail, we mention that there's a Daily Fail podcast.
Yes.
But sometimes they get a story correctly.
Yes.
Even though they're shitty.
It happens.
Yes. There's a Netflix series that was called Skin Decision. She's in episode 3, I believe it is. It's called Beauty Isn't Dangerous. A couple of New York Times articles, New York Post, and a transcript of a Larry King interview in 2002. Larry King! Remember him, Sonia?
Yeah. Oh, how can I forget?
I'll get you just the basics of Marla's life. She was born June 18th, 1961 in Independence, Missouri. Her parents were Phyllis and Robert Hansen. Grew up Midwestern girl. What we would say an all-American girl at the time, anyway.
There you go.
She was in a home that was unstable. Her parents split up when she was young, and she was living with her mother. And after the attacks, she did give some media interviews, and she told Glamour magazine that when she was around 12, somebody in her family was sexually assaulting her. And she went to her mother, and she didn't believe her. The family wasn't taking care of it, so Marla ran away. Okay. And then Marla's father took her in. So she went from living in the Midwest to going to Texas with her dad. Now, her dad in Texas, and it's Waxahachie. I'm so sorry if I butchered that. It's a suburb of Dallas. I know pronunciation sometimes is our bugaboo. When they moved to Texas, she was going to Christian colleges like the Southwestern Assemblies of God University. Her dad got really, really religious, and the kind of religions where they have speaking in tongues. And it's
fun.
Very strict.
Yes.
No rock music, skirts down to your ankle. You can only date Christian boys, and they have to meet her father first. Some people like to live that way.
No, that's fine. If you do you. If that works for you, great. But,
right. She was 5'4" and beautiful at her kind of top height. She went to, she had a really nice friend of the family who actually taught her and her brother how to talk as if they're speaking in tongues, because they felt really self-conscious because they didn't know how to do it. And so they kind of taught them a few sentences so that they could just do, because people want to just fit in. You just want to fit in wherever you are.
Such a weird thing to want to learn, but okay. I mean, we all should learn a second language. That's important.
Say this shit and you'll fit in. Okay, that's all I need to hear. But her dad was deeply religious. He wanted Marla to, marry a Christian man. And she was into it for a while. And then she's like, nah, I'm going to Dallas. I'm going to, in Dallas in the 80s.
Yeah. She wanted some of that
oil.
Ewing. Some of that Ewing oil money.
And that was when oil was like $31 a barrel. Discos are opening up. There's Neiman Marcus. There's, high society there. So she didn't have a full education, but she had a lot of moxie. She has this beautiful smile. She's really outgoing. She likes people. They like her right away. So she tries waitressing, but she's not great at it, and she gets fired. And then
a special skill.
It's not easy, y'all.
No, people pretend that that shit's easy and that anybody can do it. You can't. That shit is fucking hard.
To keep those drinks, because she doesn't drink, to keep all those drinks, figured out and all that things. But they were usually handsome men and women that made good money in business down there. So she would collect business cards, and she was studying for her real estate license. And then she started selling real estate, and she had these clients right away. But she always, a part of her was like, I want to do something else. She wanted to be more creative, and she wanted to model. And she modeled in some stores down there, but she's 5'4". Nowadays, there's a lot of actually different agencies for petite people, whatever. Yes. Back then, it was like you needed to be at least 5'9" and 110 pounds. And that was it. There was no other way around it. So her friends, some people there were like, you're never going to make it here. It's not even worth the money to get photographs taken. And then her boss said he gave her an opportunity before he wound up going to jail for some kind of fraud. Yeah. He sent her to New York, transferred to New York City. And she was like, New York City, oh my God. She goes to New York, and she's getting $25,000 a year, which you find out really quickly does not take you very far in New York, even in 86.
Nope.
You've got rent, you got subways, you got, everything. So she's trying to get jobs working at restaurants once again. She's not really great at that. And as she's walking around New York, several times within the first year she was living there, a few months that she was living there, men would stop her on the street and say, hi, I'm a photographer. Can I take your picture? And she would politely take their card and then just shove it in her purse and forget about it. Yeah. And then she turned out she was dating a guy who was a photographer. And he looked through these, and he said to her, oh my God, these are the real deal.
And she is beautiful. I was just pulling up her pictures and looking at them. She does have a beautiful smile. She's absolutely gorgeous.
And she has radiant skin.
Yes.
And she had a perfect figure for lingerie. She had a lot of lingerie modeling, which is, that's its own little skill set.
Yes.
So she goes to an agency that signs women. It's a petite modeling agency. And within a few months, she's making money. She's and she's not doing full fashion shoots, high fashion. Vogue is not going to pick her. But like I said, her skin is so gorgeous. She's doing commercials and she's getting callbacks. And she's thriving. Yeah. She had some messy relationships. Your 20s are messy.
Yes.
It's just,
That's the time. That's what you do in your 20s.
Yeah. So she's modeling. She does ads for a liquor company, a candy bar. Her legs are in Mademoiselle magazine. Her eyes are in Glamour magazine. She's in a JCPenney catalog. So she's doing okay.
Yeah.
And at one of the gigs, she meets a guy. His name is Steve Roth, and he's a 27-year-old makeup artist. And he'd done some TV work. He's immediately into Marla. And he asks her, he stands too close. He's really coming on to her. And she's used to this guy's hit on her all the time.
Yes.
But he says, did you ever try bikini waxing? He says, because I could do that for you. I could, don't shave your legs. I could wax your legs, but if you want, I can also wax your bikini. I could shave that, for you. And he said to her, how would you like the feel of my face between your legs? And she said, I would find that disgusting, actually.
You burnt, Steve Roth.
A few weeks later, he contacts her and says, hey, I have an apartment. It's on West 34th Street in New York, right midtown. And I'm only charging $600 a month in rent. You'll be in there with a couple other models. Are you in? And she was like, $600 a month? Yeah, I can afford that. Mm. So she eagerly signs up. Now this man is her landlord.
Mm. Okay.
And she's living with 2 women. He's coming over and visiting all the time. He shows up without any notice. He has a key to the place. He just walks in when they're going to the bathroom, when they're sleeping, when they're just hanging on the couch, when they're trying to get ready in the morning. He's showing up all the time. And Marla is like putting her foot down. You can't do that. You're supposed to give us notice. And he's not fixing things like, the shower is busted and he doesn't fix it. He thinks they have to pay for that. And they're like, no, that's your job. And he's getting more and more aggressive with her. And she's trying to put up boundaries and trying to be like, hey, no, this isn't okay. So she eventually finds another place in the building where she can rent. And this way, she doesn't have to move too far, but she doesn't have to deal with this asshole. And like I said, and so she tells Steve, I'm going to stay at another place in the building. I'm going to move out on this date. You need to give me my money for my deposit. It was like $800, which is what she really needed. He shows up the next day, uninvited. She's sleeping in her room. He's over her bed, screaming in her face, calling her the C word.
Fuck this guy. He thinks he owns her.
He thinks he owns her.
He wants her, so therefore she's his property.
She's his property. So he's like calling her a bitch and he's, threatening her. And she's like, get the fuck out. And they're going back and forth and it's really creepy. They set up a date where he finally is like, okay, I'll bring you your $850, but you have to meet me at this bar. And the bar was like around the corner. And it's like close to midnight. And she's like, so she shows up because she needs the money, because she's moving into a new place and she wants to just be done with this guy.
Right.
And at first he's trying to have a conversation with her and she's like talking. She's like, just give me my money. Let's go. We're cool. Yeah. I'll see you in the neighborhood. And then he gets aggressive again. Why are you such a bitch to me? Why are you so horrible to me? Who do you think you are? Why do you think you're so great?
She's so horrible to him because she won't go out with him.
She won't get waxed by him. But they're going back and forth, and she's finally like, dude, just come on. Just help me out. And this is June 4th, 1986. So they walk outside, and they're near a precinct, a police precinct that she could see. Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I'm just thinking Andre Braugher Day. But she can see, those precincts look like. So she sees that in the distance. So she's like, well, it'll be okay. So they're walking around on the street. He told her in the bar, I don't want to give you money in the bar because it's going to make it look weird. Let's look like a drug deal or something. So let's go outside. She's like, fine, whatever. Just give me my fucking money.
Yeah.
She starts walking with him outside and she says he's trying to put his arm around her. He's acting really squirrely. He's not really paying attention. And
fucking creep.
She's like, I just want my money. And then all of a sudden 2 men show up and they happen to be black. And one's her size and one is over 6 feet tall.
Okay.
And he's saying to her, don't be afraid of them. Don't be afraid of them. They're not going to hurt you. So immediately her brain is like, what the fuck? Like, get me out of here. So the men come over. One of them holds her against a wall and the other one slashes her face with a razor. And Steve does nothing. She screams, goes back to the bar because she's just completely stunned and in shock. The bar calls the police. They come right away and they're checking out the neighborhood right away. And they found Steve and the 2 men because they were all together and they were covered in blood. The 2 men and it was Marla's blood. So she wakes up. She's in the hospital. Like, that's what she remembers. And she's sharing a room with somebody. Her face hurts and she doesn't understand what's going on. And the doctors explain, we had to do a lot of surgery on your face. You were slashed up and down your face, across. And the doctor, he said it was like putting together a vase because her skin was like so porcelain and fine. But like you can never get it exactly the way it was before.
Right.
And he says, this is going to take some time. We're not sure exactly what's going to happen. She has 100 stitches in her face.
My God. It's so fucking awful. Like, you can't hide this either. Like, it's there. So like everyone who sees you can see it. They're thinking about it. Mm-hmm. They might ask you about it. and it's there for everybody. Fucking assholes. Like,
Yeah.
what did they... I'm very curious of where the story's going to go because I'm wondering, like, what was the end game here? But I'm sure you're going to get to that.
Yeah. Roth is arrested. Steve Roth is arrested right away. And the two men. Once again, the other one's name is Steve.
Yeah.
They're both named Steve. There's two Steves and a Darren. So they're arrested. And eventually, arrest reports come out. They go on wires. Reporters hear about things.
Yeah.
And a woman being slashed 100 times in her face. And then somebody tells somebody, oh, yeah, I heard she's a model, too. Which,
Yeah.
you know, of course, they're like, it's somebody who's making a living off of their
her money,
looks.
her money maker.
That's it. Right. She doesn't have a money tree in her backyard. Like, that's the thing she's got that she's using. The second day, she had all this surgery done in her face. The second day, she said the doctors, she had a roommate that was acting weird. Her doctors were yelling at her because they're like, you're moving too much. You need to lie perfectly still because your muscles haven't been set yet. You can't talk. You have to be just perfectly still. But the phone in the room is ringing off the hook. And it's reporters. It's
So stressful.
It's weirdos calling the hospital.
Yeah.
So eventually the reporters got more and more demanding. She just unplugged the phone because she's not supposed to talk. She's supposed to lay down and keep still. And then the front desk at the hospital comes in and they start screaming at her because they're like, hey, we can't handle all these calls. Now, let me tell you this. They have a PR department at a hospital, a communications team that should be handling this.
Yes.
But they say to her, pick a reporter and just talk to one and then let it go. She says, fine. So she just randomly just picks, a very aggressive TV journalist comes in.
It's like not for the hospital people to decide, by the way. Like
they have a communications team. There's a PR person.
Yes.
There's somebody that they put right. It shouldn't be that reporters should be able to just barge into your room and interview you. Right. So a TV journalist finally persuades her. So they go into the room and she's raised to be, and she said later on, she realizes it was her years when she was assaulted and then living someplace new and then becoming religious. Like she just became like very sunny and sweet to like make people feel at ease with her.
Yes.
You know, she doesn't complain.
Yes. Well, which is what a lot of women do.
Yes.
We're all raised to like to put other people's feelings first, to make other people feel comfortable. Like don't be rude to people because you don't want to make people mad. You know,
they might call you a bitch.
They might call you a bitch, and that would, she just went through something so fucked up. She did all the things right that you're supposed to do with someone, and this still happened to her. And then the trauma of that, on top of people yelling at her and trying to get at her and tell their story, I can't even fucking imagine.
You and I have both been in a hospital. It's not fun.
No, it sucks.
It sucks.
And I'm not like, I don't have the press barging down my door to talk to me, and it sucks.
Right. So
I can't imagine.
Yeah, one person gets the interview, and then all the other reporters are pissed off because that person got the interview. So
Right.
then everyone else is like bothering the hospital. So then the hospital says, look, you need to give them a press conference because now they're all pissed at us. So she has to be rolled into a room, sit up in the gown, her face, stitches all over her face, put people at ease and be like, it's okay. I'm going to be fine. I'm grateful for the hospital. I'm grateful for the doctors. I still love this city. I still love it here. Like she's completely like trying to make everybody feel at ease. And so then everybody likes this story. Look how plucky she is. She's smiling. She's like, she's not letting this get to her. And that's the story, right? And then people, because people suck, they're kind of like, and by the way, I should say, let me say this. She was scared. She finally got a private room and she wondered why, because she barely had any money of her own. But there's a billionaire, an octogenarian philanthropist who not only paid her bills for the hospital, but he set her up to get $20,000 a year for the rest of her life. He said, just don't tell anybody. So she had somebody set up to do that for her, which was really sweet.
Just because he felt bad about what happened to her. And
he read about it in the news and he was like, well, someone's got to, I'm sure she has bills. She's like young. She can't be rich. She's got to and he felt bad for her. So he did that. But some people, when she was in the hospital, people started calling. They started sending her letters. And then she got people from her old Christian life who were calling her and saying, this is your fault because you left the Lord, because you moved to New York, because you turned your back on God. This is why this happens to you.
All your fault.
Right.
It's all your fault.
And then it turns out the press goes to Texas to find old friends and old boyfriends. And it turns out she had some messy relationships. And she one time bounced a check.
And by the way,
who among us? I don't know, but...
Oh, I hope nothing bad ever happens to me, because when they find out how many checks I bounced in my 20s.
Oh, yeah. Marla gets out. This is June of 86. Basically saying, like, I'm still going to model. I'm still going to do everything. Because this is her dreams. This is all she wanted to do. And in the meantime, the DA recommends that she doesn't seek psychological help because it might undermine her testimony at trial. Like, even though they got the guys, they're saying to her, it might look bad for you. She just went about her life. And she's being chased by photographers. Every magazine wants to interview her. All these talk shows want to interview her. And all this stuff is like, then it becomes like, well, is she that innocent? Like, she tended to be, she was like, Marla was one of those people who just went out to get what she wanted. And she was very driven. And I'm like, yeah, like 90% of New Yorkers. Like,
yeah.
So fucking what? So there's the trial. This shit just hits the fan. It's December of 1986. So the prosecutor was Connie Fernandez. And the court is set up that the men that attacked Marla, which would be the Steves and Darren, are on trial. Steve has his own attorney, and then and Bauman and Darren have their own court. So the first time we go up, it's Steve Roth, and the judge is Judge Jeffrey Atlas, and he's for both cases, for both trials. Okay. This is all of December this takes up for her. Steve goes in and says his bombshell is, the thing is me and Steve Bowman, we've known each other since we were teenagers, and we've been lovers since then. So we are in a secret homosexual relationship. I told Steve told Steve, sorry if this gets confusing, but the landlord tells this guy, I'm getting married to a woman. We can't be friends anymore. We can't see each other anymore. The other Steve and Darren got together and decided that Marla must be the one that Steve Roth is going to marry. So they're just going to stalk him and then threaten her. The judge, nobody buys this.
Yes. No.
They're all like, this is ludicrous. He shot a shot. He gets convicted.
Yeah.
So the second trial happens, and it's the Steve Bowman and Darren Norman, and the attorney is Alton Maddox. And Alton Maddox is someone, New York City at the time, we're talking about Central Park. There was what happened there. There were a lot of racial crimes. There were a lot of racially motivated things that happened, that still happen. But like 80s is a big time for that in New York. There's a lot of coverage of it in the trials. Tom Wolfe, Bonfire of the Vanities. It's all about that kind of thing.
Yes. That documentary on HBO about Boston, that's in the 80s
yes,
too.
Exactly, the same time. So there's racial strife that's happening. Alton's job is, as a defense attorney, I got to protect my clients. I got to make sure that they're not convicted. So he decides he's going to be using race in the story because they're black and she's white. Basically, that she's a Jezebel, that she's someone that brought this on herself because she dates multiple men and she's...
Oh, this is going to make me so angry.
Once again, this was his, and the judge who's supposed to keep on top of this, Judge Jeffrey Atlas, just lets this guy ask any question of her. He was asking her, why were we wearing a mini skirt? Weren't you really into him? Why do you use men? That kind of thing.
You could wear a short skirt. It doesn't mean you want your face slashed.
No.
What the fuck?
What? It doesn't make a lick of sense.
No, it makes no sense to me.
He said that Marla Hanson, a girl out of Texas with a lot of racial hang-ups, as she walked up that street, just the simple act of seeing two black men walking, saying nothing to her, she went absolutely nuts. Immediately, she thought she was about to be raped and began to fear all of the black men being because she was from Texas, that she flirted with other women's men. He asked her a lot of questions that, like, didn't Steve call you the C word? And she didn't want to say the C word. He made her say it. And the judge was just letting it go. All these questions. And her lawyer is objecting. It's not like she was raped. She was slashed across the face.
Yeah.
There's no...
All of this, first of all, this is all bullshit stuff. Let's say it's true. Let's say she did freak out because she saw two black men. And let's say she does sleep with other women's husbands or boyfriends.
OPP.
Yeah, she's all down for OPP. That doesn't mean she gets to get her face slashed. That's not a justification for anything.
No.
No, it doesn't work that way. She could be the worst person. It doesn't matter. You don't get to just walk up to people and slash their face.
No, and she's getting, basically what we would say nowadays, she's being called a Karen. That she's someone a white lady that overreacted when she saw two black men. And actually, Steve was the one that did it, not them, and all this stuff. She had to have police escorts going in and out of the building. And there were times when obviously there were horrible racial things that happened in New York.
Yes, this is where I was just going to jump in and say that having Al Sharpton there doing these things is because there were crimes where like the Central Park Five, like all these things that were like, yes, there was like a racial component.
Absolutely.
And it was important for them to be there and to show up, and Black Lives Matter. That's not what happened here.
No, that's not the case that happened here. They had the razor blades on them. They had her blood on their clothing. They had no relation to her except for Steve. And Steve was being a stalker and a weirdo. And he was just convicted.
That they would just slash her face. And she's like, oh, man.
Yeah.
They slashed my face. I guess I'll go out with Steve now and not move into a new apartment.
His job
they didn't have anything plan.
They're in defense, and I get this. He's a defense attorney. He's there to raise questions. I'm here asking questions. They don't have to come up with answers. They can just come up with any scenario that they want.
Some reasonable doubt.
This is also Tawana Brawley. We could talk about that case someday. Like that was a huge case. I mean, there's times, of course, there's this racial element. It just happened to be she was a white woman attacked by two black men, and it was done because they were paid off by her shitty landlord, who was a total stalker and creep.
Yes.
You know, they would go out of there, and the press is there when she's being cross-examined and being asked really vulgar questions about her character and stuff. And the press would write about it. They'd ask her, like, how did it go in court today? Because she talks to everybody. She's like, not so great. I really feel like I was the one that was being attacked again. Young men get convicted. And as Marla and her attorney are there, the judge starts screaming about her and her lawyer and saying that they made a mockery of this court, that they were an embarrassment, that he was furious with them. She bursts into tears. She then convicts these guys, and then he kind of apologizes to her because she saw that she really started crying and she was upset. Then Ed Koch, because this is New York City in the 80s, he was the mayor then. Look him up. He's a character. He gets into the media and is like, I cannot believe we're attacking people on the witness stand who were victims of crime.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell is going on here? It's right out of Bonfire of the Vanities. It's like this very extreme case. So what happens is they get convicted 10, 15 years, and she's trying to go about her life. So she sells her life story for a TV movie. And it's lucrative. You know, it pays the bills for a while. If you
I'm
sell
almost positive I've seen this.
Oh yeah, and I put a link in the show notes. It's easy to get on YouTube. It's the Marla Hansen story. And Hansen spelled like the Hansen brothers.
Yeah.
Mbop. So she gets through this. They make this movie, and she's able to finally kind of tell it from her point of view. You know, she's pretty, there's as much control as she can have over a thing. But in a couple of years, she starts a relationship with Jay McInerney, who, this is another part of New York City. He's in the glitterati, whatever. He wrote Bright Lights, Big City.
Yes. Okay.
He was friends with those Tama Janowitz and all these other like New York type, Brett Easton Ellis, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So he's divorcing his first or second wife, and then he starts dating Marla. They meet at a party, and they are together for 4 years. And then they're talking about having kids. And then he says to her, I'm not thinking that. They decide to take a break. And then 2 months later, he marries somebody else. So she's like, fucking hell. Like, what do I do now? And she's trying, and she always wanted to be involved in TV and movies. You know, she had sold her story. And so she goes to the philanthropist, the guy who gave her the money, Milton, and she said, I really want to go and learn about filmmaking and editing and stuff like that and storytelling. I really am into that. And he says, I think that's great. I'm on the board at NYU. I'll help you out. So he gets her, pays for her college, and she's going to film school at NYU.
It's a very generous person.
He's a sweetheart. Yeah. He's not a creep.
Okay.
She writes a screenplay. She does her student film. You know, she has to raise money for it for herself, and she really loves it. She works for Abel Ferrara, who's a filmmaker. Do you remember The Bad Lieutenant? I think that's one of his. Yeah.
Yeah.
She does a couple of Subway stories. That there was a series that was called Subway Stories. She did one of those scripts.
It's on HBO, right?
Yes. Long time ago. Back before it was Max. But she's not really going anywhere. To somebody else in her life. So the police officers that helped her that day was Joe Roman. He was the first person that she met, the detective. He was there because he was right at the precinct. Mm-hmm. So he helps her. He takes her to court when she's going to trial a few months later. A few years later, she's at NYU. He's there. He's a detective at this point. He's on a drug bust, and they run into each other. And then a few years after that, he hears through the grapevine that Marla's not doing really well. She is stymied. You know, show business is a lot of luck involved. It's not just hard work. It's also a lot of luck. And she had just a lot of trauma and had a hard
just
time.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
And she started just living in the Chelsea Hotel in New York.
Okay.
Which is not a good thing. It's a very storied history. We should do an episode of Chelsea Hotel maybe. That'd be kind of fun. Yeah. He's one of the people that found her. And she basically at this point said she was suicidal.
Oh.
She just didn't know what to do with her life.
Yeah.
She was, everything I'm trying, it's just so hard, and it's hard to get through the day, and it's hard to, get over the emotional scars. And he's one of those people that said, get some help. You need to keep trying. You need to keep living. You need to keep fighting. Yeah. And a few months later, she's on a flight, and she sits next to a really cute guy who works in shipping, and they strike up a conversation. And like 6-7 months later, they get married. And they live in New York, and then she becomes a mom.
Oh.
And she has a daughter. And she and Joe Roman, the detective, were friendly. They would just check in with each other. They were Facebook friends. They would check in with each other. Joe Roman was in New York on 9/11 and worked at Ground Zero.
Okay.
And unfortunately, he died in 2019 from cancer. And he was 60 years old. And it was...
Fuck cancer.
Fuck cancer. So she was just heartbroken about that. And then a year later, she went on this Netflix show to them. And then the show in this Netflix show, it's about beauty. And I forget the name of it already. It's in the show notes. But basically, you go in and you have your skin condition or whatever. And they decide, are you going to go under the knife or are we just going to use procedures and see how we can help you? Mm-hmm. And Marla had said that she'd just gotten to the point of her life that she thought, beauty was my enemy. It got me all my trouble. So she said, I just let it go. And so she didn't take care of herself. And she just kind of, and her daughter was trying to encourage her, like, Mom,
she was trying to protect herself. Like, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, I think, and she just she lives in New York. She raised her daughter. But I think she was ready to, because she wanted to be a victim's advocate. Yeah. But everywhere she went, she was like Marla the slashed model. And she had some gigs, like there was a skin care that you could use to hide scars, like she was their spokesperson. But still, I mean, I'm reading this article in Texas Monthly, and like this one, she was at a convention for dermatologists and cosmetic procedures and helping with scarring, and doctors just went over and started touching her face and like a poke. Yeah, she was like,
It's so weird.
and talk about how
You're
beautiful
weird,
and
man.
thin she is and all this stuff, and she's just like, I'm tired of this. This is just yeah. So she kind of let herself go a little bit. She became middle aged, like that's just, and she kind of needed the boost. She was realizing like, I need to feel good about me again, and so she goes on this show, and they didn't give her an actual facelift, but they described all the procedures that they did. And she doesn't look, like a real housewife with like all that,
Yeah.
She just looks like a really pretty middle-aged lady. And she said it was the best thing she'd done for herself. Like it just made her feel young again and made her feel more like herself. And so now she is, once again, she's back to being a victim's advocate. And there was a slashing in New York a couple of years ago. And she went on all the shows to like meet with the victim and just say, look, I've been there, and you're going to be okay. And it's, there's a light down there. There's a light out there. So just keep it up. And, that's our story. She's still married. She still lives in the New York area. And she's really was a really nice person to get to know. And I've just always been fascinated by this case. So so the creep was the Steves and Darren and that judge and attorney, and most of them are whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good job, my friend.
Thank you.
Dude, fuck those guys. Do you want to hear about something that's not creepy?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I was doing some digging around, and I'm sure a lot of people know this, but plastic surgery is kind of expensive.
No.
It's not something that people just get. And I think when people think of plastic surgery, they think of Real Housewives or they think of boob jobs. And there's a lot of cases of plastic surgery that's life-saving, that you need it. So I thought I would find some places that do plastic surgery, like nonprofits.
Oh,
basically.
nice.
So if you don't know, like, again, there's plastic surgery that people they need it. It not only just improves their life, but it can save lives. And people could need that because they could have things from war or traffic accidents. Burns are a big one. Natural disasters, and then you can have scarring or infections or nerves that are exposed. They can cause disabilities, and that can lead to poverty, and it can also just lead to infections and death. So there's a couple of ones that I found. There's one called resurge.org, and that one's like an international nonprofit, and they train plastic surgeons all over the world, and they do surgical care in low-income countries and areas, and low-income areas in countries. Sorry, I said that wrong. So it's like Africa, Asia, Latin America, and they not only provide that service for patients, but they like train teams in different countries to do that. There's one here in the United States called freshstart.org. Jesus, sorry, everybody.
Long week for Sonia.
dot org. No, just the one dot. That one's here in the United States. I'm going to put all of these. I'll put the links in the show notes. So if people want to like learn more about it or donate, whatever, you can. So this one's called Fresh Start Surgical Gifts. And this one's for like infants, children, and teenagers that are born, either they're born with like physical, I'm trying to think of what the right word, deformities, I guess would be the right word. So it could be, like cleft palates or, things like that. But it can also just be from accidents. It could be abuse. It could be disease that cause these things. So there's that one. There's one called Mission Plasticos. And this one does reconstructive surgery free of charge for people as well. And they do it communities all over the world. I I singled this one out in particular because there's like 60% of women in the United States that get breast cancer and they live below the poverty line don't get any kind of reconstruction.
No.
And again, the shit, they deem it as elective, right? So it's not covered. And sometimes it's just plastic surgery is elective. Like, and because our medical system sucks in this country, but like, it's not just, this isn't just elective. Like some of these again are life-saving. Breast reconstruction, you know, there's just more to it than just like, and then she gets some big jugs. Like that's not what it's about. So,
I think if you're going through cancer and if you want big jugs, you should get the biggest jugs.
No, by the way, I'm not shitting on anyone who wants to get big knockers after their breast reconstruction surgery. Girl, go crazy. Get whatever you want. I'm just saying, like, we should be doing more for people. So Mission Plasticos does stuff like that too. And again, we'll have links in the show notes. Another one I looked up is called My Face. Not MySpace, My Face. And it's part of the Educational Research Foundation for this is just going to roll off the tongue, the Educational Research Foundation for the American Academy of Facial Plastic and Reconstructive Surgery Foundation. And they have a couple of different little subcategories. So they have their like Face-to-Face International, and that's the one that helps children all over the world with like facial deformities. And then there's the Domestic Violence Project, and that helps survivors of domestic abuse. And then there's Faces of Honor, and that one does free like surgery for soldiers who have been injured in the line of duty.
Wow.
And again, we're going to have the link in the show notes. And then the last one is called OperationSmile.org. And that one, I think people probably know about this one. This is a lot of like dental, cleft palate, things like that for children and young adults born with those sort of things or through accidents and whatnot. But, and they're like OperationSmile.org. So if you want to learn more about it, you could do that. These are all these different organizations that you can donate to if you want, or if you just want to learn more.
Yeah.
Dig in.
Wonderful job, Sonia.
Thank you.
If you like the sound of our voices and you want to hear us talk about stuff that's not depressing, usually, we also co-host a show called Dorking Out, where we dork out about movies. Sonia, what did we just cover? It was the Queen Latifah movie.
We did Last Holiday, which
amazing.
God, we got so much positive feedback on that one. I can't remember the last time a movie clicked with people. Like, this was a discovery for a lot of people, and they are like really happy to have watched it. And that makes me so happy.
Right.
Because we love it so much. So that's a good one.
We're trying out, because neither one of us has seen this before, 4 Christmases. And that's with Reese Witherspoon and Vince Vaughn.
Yes.
It's set in the Bay Area. Should be interesting. So that's what we're dropping there.
We'll see. We'll see. We don't know what to expect with this one. Was this a request? It probably was.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Anyway, if y'all have ideas for creeps or for non-creeps, we love that. Send us your suggestions at the places I mentioned at the top of the show. We really love it when you use the Annie Potts gift. We got one from Ghostbusters, but you can also just be clever and do whatever the hell you want. Our email, once again, is whatacreeppodcast, spelled it all out, at gmail.com. And Sonia, where can they find you?
You can find me at thesoniashow.com and The Sonia Show on the Twitter, the X Twitter, the Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, Facebook, the TikTok, all the places. Where can people find you, Margot?
I'm a little more complicated, sorry. I'm at Brooklyn Fit Chick. That's my site. That's where I am on Twitter. That's where I am on Threads and Instagram. I'm on the TikTok at Brooklyn Margot. And I think I have a clip there of Marla on Inside Edition there. Ooh. And other stuff too. And also on Blue Sky, Brooklyn Margot. Okay, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We will have a new episode next week.
Yes,
Just
we will.
in time for the holidays. We're figuring that out. But in the meantime, stay safe, be kind. Don't be a creep.
Be a creep. Thank you for listening to us talk about creeps. You can follow us at What a Creep Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
But don't follow us too closely.
You can email us your creepy stories at whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com.
But please keep your dick pics to yourself.